need anything? All right. With the time being 7:17, I'd like to call the Government Operations Committee to order on this Monday night of March 18th. Roll call, please.
Betzner?
Yes. Here.
Weber?
Here.
Fulkaitis?
Here.
Folks?
Here.
Bungard?
Here.
Muntz? Here. Lencioni?
Yep.
Gem?
Here.
Petrilla?
Here.
Werball?
Here. Thank you. First up is the omnibus vote. We have two items that are up for omnibus. I'm looking for a motion and a second.
Make a motion to
Moved
approve.
by Munn, seconded by Gem. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Okay. Omnibus carries. Second up is item 5B. Bill Hannah's going to make a presentation. You have the floor, Bill.
Thank you, Chair Weber. The first item for discussion here is a ordinance reserving the city's volume cap allocation for 2024. Every year, the city receives a volume cap allocation from the state, which is essentially the ability of the city to issue private activity bonds to support qualified private activities, such as subsidized housing initiatives, industrial development projects, or other non-manufacturing uses. The city is not liable for anything that might be issued. If we were to allow a developer to use our volume cap, it's simply transferred to that entity. We haven't had anyone use the volume cap in many, many years, but we always reserve it just in case something comes up. So the ordinance would essentially reserve the volume cap for the city of St. Charles for 2024, and the ordinance is presented for discussion.
Any questions on this item?
Move for approval.
Second. Okay, moved by Werball, seconded by Petrilla. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. There is zero opposition. This item carries. Thank you very much. Moving right along to item 5C. Bill Hannah once again. Go ahead.
All right, everyone should see the presentation of the draft budget on their screen. So the next item is an introduction overview of the city's draft budget for fiscal 24-25. This overview tonight will be followed up with the official public hearing and formal budget approval on April 15th. For a frame of reference, this is the second year that the city has produced an official draft budget for review and discussion. There's a lot of information in the draft budget, and there may be a couple other sections that will add for the final budget approval. This is essentially a continuation of what was previously discussed at the January workshop, except we actually have some numbers associated for presentation tonight. There's nothing really significantly new versus what was discussed in January. So I'll walk through this overview tonight, and if you have any questions, please let us know, and a PDF will be available after the meeting. So this is a summary of all city funds, revenues, and expenditures. For next fiscal year, we are presenting $214.5 million in revenues and $226.5 million in expenditures. One thing I wanted to note, this presentation does include inter-fund transfer activity between different funds, so revenues and expenditures also include transfers between funds. We just call them revenues and expenditures. So that is the budget as presented, $214.5 million in revenues and $226.4 million in expenditures. The general fund is the city's main operating fund. We're presenting a general fund tonight that is balanced, revenues over expenditures by $140,000, $65.7 million in the general fund and $65.6 million in expenditures. This presentation, and moving over to the forecasted column for 23-24, this includes transfers of $2.6 million to the water fund and $300,000 to the sewer fund to support operations and various capital projects that are going to be done next fiscal year. This was discussed in January, and we finally came up with some numbers that we feel is a good starting point to support those critical water and sewer fund operations and capital projects. We also had a $1 million transfer out to support sewer fund activities. Additional $1 million to support the water fund next year, and $200,000 for the sewer. This budget also maintains a $1.2 million transfer to the capital fund that repeats what we have budgeted in the current year. We do have one-time revenues this year in the amount of $2.6 million because we are closing one of our debt service funds that we use to repay our sales tax revenue bonds related to Costco. So that $2.6 million is coming back into the general fund, and that's partially how we're able to support some of those transfers and one-time expenditures in the general fund next year. We are projecting the general fund to be ending next fiscal year roughly $28.6 million in fund balance. That's roughly 43% reserve level, a slight decrease from the current year. This breaks down our major revenue and expenditures by department in our general fund. As you can see, property taxes are roughly 23% of general fund revenues. Various sales taxes are 45% revenue, and intergovernmental is roughly 10%. That's primarily our state shared income tax revenue, or LGDF revenue. We have other smaller revenue sources comprising the general fund. On the expense side, the main expenditure categories are police, fire, and public works, comprising roughly 55%, 60% of all expenditures in a general fund. And then we have our various city hall and other support services, comprising 12%, community and economic development at 5%. This is a presentation of the major general fund revenues by category. Property taxes are slightly increasing next year, $14.5 billion, $15 million. That includes all the special service area levies, 1A and 1B as well. Our sales tax, we're still anticipating revenue growth for both our 1% sales tax revenue, going from $18 million to $18.5 million, and our 1% home rule sales tax going from $9.1 million to $9.3 million. The state shared income tax revenue, that's our LGDF revenue like we talked about earlier. We're budgeting that to increase to $5.7 million. And we have our alcohol tax, hotel tax, and state use tax revenues, also seeing slight increases and projecting that for next fiscal year. So overall, revenues, good incremental increases, some more than others, but overall positive economic outlook for next fiscal year. This is the operating expenditures within each department in the general fund. There are some small changes here and there, but aside from personnel cost increases and some personnel additions that we previously discussed in January, there really isn't a lot of significant changes in the operating budgets for the general fund for next year. It's probably pretty close to a status quo type budget. But there's some minor changes in operations and support services and some initiatives, but nothing really really significant. So again, those increases are presented and can be discussed further. One thing I did want to point out, we did make those additional pension contributions to the police and fire in the current fiscal year. That's why you're seeing almost no change in expenditures from the current year to next for both police and fire, because those were recorded as expenditures in this current fiscal year. As we discussed in January, the budget includes a 3.25% market adjustment for non-union positions and a 3% merit increase pool. We have 5 collective bargaining agreements, and as you know, 4 are currently under negotiations. One is set for next fiscal year of IBEW at 3%. Our staffing level FTEs for next year, as we discussed in January, there were a few modifications as far as staffing. We started the process with roughly 278 full-time equivalents serving the city, roughly increased about 4.3 in the water operations, administration, and fleet maintenance service areas. But this breaks it down by department in the general fund and our various utility service operations. Some of our major capital projects on the general side for next fiscal year. Continuation of the site analysis for the old police station, estimated at $200,000. IT projects, including the public engagement project for $123,000. I'm not going to read each one of these, but the Police Tactical Center project that's continuing into next fiscal year. We have some fire station alerting systems and roof replacements budgeted as well. The next item is our road improvements with the increased sales tax revenue. We have not only the $1.8 million in NFT road improvements, but $6.8 million in other road improvements to be done throughout the city. The 7th Avenue Creek project, as we discussed in January, is budgeted to continue next fiscal year. Our council meeting room renovation project and IT for $1.5 million. And then we have some other projects related to bridge studies, sidewalk gap funding, and some bike and PED initiatives for next year. Pause for a second. Any questions on that?
Go ahead, Jamie.
I'm curious on this slide, how many of these include grants, or is this the solely our pay, or what we are paying? Does any of that include money that we're receiving in grants?
I think the only one that's grant funded is what's listed near the bottom, the bike and PED DCEO grant, $250,000. That was for some upgrades to some traffic signal work.
So not even anything for the Prairie Street Bridge repairs or anything like that?
These are correct. These are all funded primarily out of the capital projects fund.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Bill, I had one question too.
Yeah.
Red Gate Bridge, when is that going to fall into the budget? Would that be next year, or is it going to be this year?
There's money to further study the options, the best way to go about completing that project. There's, obviously more than one way to go about it. So there's money in the budget to study those options further, with the thought process to look at that in next budget after that year.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, one quick question too. 1.5 for the council meeting room. I know so your budget, that's the highest I recall. We still haven't, or maybe I'm deviating a little bit. Will we have an analysis soon? Because that's the highest, so it's probably going to come in a little lower than that, I assume, right?
I would assume so, yeah.
Okay. Or maybe that's what Peter would.
Yeah, that'll be likely coming in August, but
Okay.
we'll put it in the budget for now, and then we'll determine whether or not we want to make those expenditures later.
Right, just covering the bases now. So, okay, cool. Thanks.
Bill, were you all done with your presentation?
No, I'm not done yet.
Not done yet? Okay,
Yeah.
I'll let you keep going. before
Okay.
I have one more
Go
question
ahead, Jamie.
while we're still there. It was a few slides back, actually,
Yep.
regarding some of the tax money that's coming in. I know that there's a proposal for the potential for losing the state grocery tax.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that we project for, or do we simply deal with that when and if it happens?
Yeah, that's something we're going to keep monitoring, and
Okay.
we've started to have some discussions internally about what our approach is going to be in terms of responding to that. So there's going to be future discussions about that, but essentially right now we're in a monitoring phase right now with that. But when we get to that point, if we get to that point, we'll have various strategies and options to consider at that point.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, one more question.
Go ahead.
Since we're on this page, going back to the hotel tax, do you know if that number of 1.85 million is coming close to what it was bringing in before COVID or before the Pheasant Run was out of commission?
That's a good question. I believe it is higher than it was pre-COVID.
Okay.
I believe the highest pre-COVID number was around 1.7 million, and this obviously is at 1.85.
Okay, it's a good number. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. This is a snapshot of our capital fund. This obviously funds most of our road projects and other capital facility improvements. Next year, we will have the first full year of our sales tax increase implemented last year. We're estimating those revenues coming in around $4.8 million. We have various intergovernmental revenues and investment income also supporting those capital activities. We are looking at possibly considering an additional transfer to this fund at the end of this current fiscal year, but that's going to really depend on how things come in financially towards more closer to the end of the year and what our most pressing needs are in terms of setting aside monies for additional capital projects. But overall, in our capital fund, we are projecting roughly $16.1 million in capital projects next year, so a pretty big number, but a lot of things that have been kind of, deferred for years or have come up recently, and we're trying to get a jump on those. This is a little hard to see, but this is a map of the road improvements scheduled to be done in 2024. You can see it's roughly $7 million or almost 12 miles in total. Really quickly, just want to touch base on our special revenue funds, primarily the TIF districts. We have TIF district number 3, that's our St. Charles Mall TIF district. This is the last year that TIF district will be in existence. The increment from that TIF district has been coming in pretty strong over the last couple of years, so we were able to repay the water and sewer funds, some things that were fronted initially for that TIF project. We also anticipate the TIF being able to support a water and sewer project on Prairie next year, using about $700,000 of increment from the TIF fund for its share of the project of Prairie that's within the TIF boundaries. TIF 4, that's essentially, obviously, the First Street TIF. That's money coming in, money coming out to help support debt service. St. Charles Manufacturing TIF, there's only a few years left on that TIF, but we don't have any more debt service to retire on that fund. TIF 7 is our Central Downtown TIF. That increment has been also coming in pretty well the last couple of years. We're accumulating money in that fund to help support the debt service for First Street TIF at this point. Next budget year is the first year we anticipate getting TIF increment from Pheasant Run, so we're estimating that coming in about $250,000. This is our best guess at this point. Our motor fuel tax fund, we were getting additional monies from the state to help support MFT projects. That's ended. Now we're just getting the normal gasoline and taxes that we are getting from the state, but there is $1.7 million to be spent in the MFT fund next year for that separate MFT road projects. The Plaza Fund, we anticipate perhaps some minor work to be done next fiscal year, but then closing that fund and moving the remaining funds, if any, back to the general fund. So that's my summary on those special revenue funds. Any questions?
Any questions up here? No?
All right, move on. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but we do have 4 internal service funds that support various operations and chargebacks. Our inventory fund, vehicle replacement fund, workers' comp and liability and communications. Our vehicle replacement fund, based on some additional transfers that we've done the last couple of years, we've gotten that number up to a healthy fund balance level, roughly $8 million. So we were concerned about funding that fund for a while, but we've been able to make that up the last couple of years. A couple quick slides on our bonds and IEP loans outstanding. This chart shows our beginning balances for the city's general obligation debt, the repayments that we're making during the upcoming budget year, and what those balances are. So we don't have any plans to issue general obligation debt next year, so we anticipate that coming down to about $88 million outstanding as of April 30th, 2025. We do have some IEP loan recognitions that we're anticipating for next fiscal year, but paying off a little bit more than we're issuing, so slight decrease in our IEP loans outstanding. So our total bonded and IEP loan outstanding is going from $165 million to roughly $156 million next fiscal year. This is a chart we talked about in October. This just kind of shows the trend over the last 6 years between the city's general obligation debt outstanding IEP loans, and the total amounts over the last 6 years. This also shows the total amount per capita, and with the little decreases that we're able to show and project for next year, that decreasing from about 4,987 to 4,728. Last chart on debt, this just shows every general obligation bond issuance that we currently have outstanding debt with and what the total annual debt service is for that. So this current year, we're roughly just over $10 million, and then roughly $9.9 million next year. So this is a lot going on, but if you want to look for more information in our budget document, there's a whole debt section in there that lists each bond issuance and IEP loan issuance, what the original amount was and what the current outstanding amount is. A lot of those issuances were refunding, so the city saves several $1 million, probably several times, refunding that debt. So it's not just new issuance money, it was refunding money as well when looking at that $132 million number. Our utilities, our electric fund, the biggest source of revenue for our electric utility obviously is our user charges, estimated to be $63 million next fiscal year. We have developer reimbursements for various projects at $7 million, so total revenues of $72 million next year. On the expense side, we anticipate expenditures budgeted to increase from $64 million projected to $70 million next fiscal year. There's roughly $11.8 million budgeted in capital. Most of that, a good portion of that is developer-related capital improvements that are reimbursed to the city. And the rest is really capital improvements in case certain projects are needed related to significant maintenance and upgrades in the system. But overall, the electric fund is pretty healthy. We are estimating the ending net current assets for the electric fund being approximately $46 million at the end of next fiscal year. Our water fund, the water fund budget for next year includes the rate adjustment that was made back in February. We see those user charges going from $9.3 million to $9.8 million. Our various other revenue sources, including connection charges, other revenues, and recognition of IEP loan proceeds. Total revenues, $14.3 million, and total expenditures, $18.4 million. One of the things I just want to point out, we talked about the increase in the operating expenditures. It was $2.1 million last year, but $2.8 million projected in this current fiscal year. We are anticipating spending some of our reserves next year to the tune of about $4 million and anticipate ending net current assets to be about $1.3 million. This lists some of the major projects in the water fund for next fiscal year. We have roughly $900,000 increase in operational expenditures related to metering and water main distribution repairs. We have roughly $9.4 million in capital projects. A lot of those are related to water main replacement projects related to the MFT program, $1 million on Swenson and various other locations in the city. The water main improvement project on Prairie, water main replacement on 7th, 6th, and 4th Street, and other projects. Some of these have come before City Council for approval already. There's a significant amount of water main that needs to get done over the next 7 years, or is planned to get done, so that will be planned out in further discussions. Any questions on water? Nope. Okay. Sewer fund, again, sewer fund incorporates the rate adjustment made back in February. Revenues estimated to be $14.8 million next fiscal year, and total expenditures of $23 million. Roughly $11.3 million in capital projects. That's a little bit less, a lot less than the last 2 years, which was roughly $19 million with those big projects on Riverside treatment lift station and West Side treatment plant expansion. Debt service is increasing from about $4 million to about $5 million next fiscal year, and projected to use about $9 million in reserves, ending the year with roughly $2.2 million in our sewer fund. So I'm bringing up some of the significant projects for sewer. Some of these were talked about in February. And again, we have the sewer component of the Prairie Street project, Indiana Street sewer improvements as well, and our CMOM capacity management, operation, and maintenance ongoing capital projects. The last thing I just want to note is the East Side sanitary sewer trunk main We have $850,000 budgeted next year for continued design and construction engineering. The thought process right now is Phase 2B could possibly begin in the first quarter of 2025. That phase is roughly, say, $14 million capital project in total. We're budgeting $1.3 million to get done, assuming that project starts late in the fiscal year next year. Both of those phases together for Phase 2 are roughly $30 million. So we anticipate having discussions potentially later this fall, early winter on funding that project and coming up with some options to consider. So that is the brief introduction overview of the budget. I know that was a lot to get through, but like I said, happy to take any questions at this point or over the next few weeks.
Thank you very much, Bill. Good presentation. Go ahead, Ron.
Thank you. Can you go back 3 slides? Can you go back 3 slides, please?
Sure. Which one would you like to see?
We're going to keep going. One more. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, the water fund. So we have water main improvement and water main replacement on 6 4 streets. Are we going to be doing our lead pipe replacement at that same time? Is that our plan? Because since we're going to have the road opened.
Yeah, I believe that is the case. That it is being done at the same time.
It will be done then when we're doing that?
Yes.
We have the money in the budget. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions currently? Go ahead, Ryan.
So 65 million is what we're looking at for the general fund.
Yes.
And that was up from 52.5 last year? I just want to make sure I have my numbers right.
That's right. It was, including transfers out, 64.2 million, and next year, 65.6 million. Last year's actual was 59 million. So you have interfund transfer activity with that as well, so we have to back that out and look at that. But
I mean, I know we talked about this back in the winter, but if you look at, call it 2014 to 2018, you're at, call it 34 to 36 million out of general fund. So over the next 4 years, you're at, 39 to 41. And then you look at the last 4 years, and what's driving that is your infrastructure. So much of your aging city needs to be, improved, rehab. So my question is, 59 out of general fund, now you're at 65. Is that a projection that this council should be comfortable with or expect over the next 2, 4, 6, 10 years to basically, sounds like we're trying to get caught up on replacing streets, water, infrastructure, and just trying to get an idea of what that means. It's great that you have, I shouldn't say that's great. You have 65, million projected in revenue, where that's coming from, and that's what you're using to get caught up. But my concern always goes back to the rate of spend that, maintaining those levels, 59 to 65, 65 to 72, 72 to 78, what it might be, is the narrative here we are trying to make up for lost time.
I think there's part of that. I think the city is absolutely trying to catch up on some capital projects. As far as the general fund, most of that is operational focused. And I think what we're seeing on the general fund side as well is the cost of providing services is continuing to go up, whether that's, contracted services, materials, and that's really driving a lot of the increases that we've seen. Things that we had bid 3 years ago at, $50,000 can be $100,000 now or $125,000. So the cost of providing services is increasing as well. I think that's driving a lot of that, especially on the general fund side. But we are trying to transfer money from the general fund to the capital fund to try and catch up on a lot of projects that have been held off over the years, but at the same time trying to limit the need to issue additional general obligation bonded debt, because long term, if we limit that, that will help us on the operating side by having more money to fund operations rather than pay debt service.
Is there, lost my voice, a lot of yelling at basketball this weekend. Is there a mile marker down the road potentially where you might see these numbers start to plateau a little bit? You know, where you think, hey, if we stay on this current track, that we could get to a point where some of this, you get caught up on, you know, your infrastructure and some of these other things?
That's a good question.
Thanks, Bill. Good question, guys.
I think we need to take a look at, you know, what we have on the plate and the docket for the next 5 to 10 years, and hopefully we can get over the hump of these really critical projects, especially on the utility side that we have to get done, and start to catch up on the roads and the other related infrastructure, and then get to a point where, you know, we are at that sort of, you know, sweet spot where we can see things start to level off.
Any other questions, Bernley? No? Go ahead, Ron.
No, I just want to say thank you for putting this together. Obviously, it took you a lot of time. There's 200 and something pages, so I'm still going through it myself. But so to sum it up, to Alderman Bongard's point, it's a lot of inflationary pressures with labor and materials and resources that's really pushing that number higher that we don't have control over. Is that kind of what's driving that? Okay. So if we have, you're going to send us this PDF then, all of this stuff?
Yes.
Okay. All right, great. So thank you for putting that together. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you very much, Bill.
All right, thank you, Bill.
Next up, we have 3 items, A, B, and C. Chief Keegan is going to present all 3 of these items. Go ahead, Chief, you have the floor.
Thank you, Alderman Weber. So item 6A is a recommendation to approve a proposal for a B1 liquor license application for Thai Corner Cuisine located at 615 South Randall, Suite 115. All 3 of these items appeared earlier this evening at the Liquor Control Commission and all advanced with unanimous recommendations. So this particular restaurant is at the corner of Randall and Lincoln Highway. It opened January 1st of this year. One of the owner-operators has previous restaurant experience and ownership in Batavia and Naperville. This is a Class B restaurant request. Dram Shop and Bassett material is in order, and this is a recommendation from the police department. The petitioner is here, as well as myself, obviously, to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions on this item? Go ahead, Jamie.
Can you just remind us what a Class B is?
That's a standard restaurant license.
Okay.
A would be package, C would be a tavern, B is a restaurant.
Thank you.
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved by Bessner, seconded by Wirball. Roll call, please.
Bessner?
Yes.
Kulkaitis?
Yes.
Volk?
Yes.
Bongard?
Yes.
Munns?
Yes.
Lencioni?
Yes.
Gem?
Yes.
Petrilla?
Yes.
Wirball?
Yes.
That item is approved. Next up is item 6B.
That, too, is a recommendation to approve a proposal for a B1 liquor license application for Southern Cafe located at 1590 East Main Street. This is the former Gino's East restaurant, the current Southern Cafe restaurant. This is an asset sale, so the current ownership group sold the business to the petitioners, plural, there's 3 owners, on March 15th of this year. This is also a Class B request. One of the 3 owners does have a liquor license, which is a package store in Schaumburg without any issues. Once again, Bassett and Dram Shop is in effect, and the police department does recommend approval of this license. Petitioners or myself can answer any questions you might have.
Any questions on this item? Moved by Lencioni, seconded by Bongard. Roll call, please.
Bessner?
Yes.
Kulkaitis?
Yes.
Volk?
Yes.
Bongard?
Yes.
Munns?
Yes.
Lencioni?
Yes.
Gem?
Yes.
Petrilla?
Yes.
Wirball?
Yes.
That item is approved. Thank you. Next item up is 6C.
Thank you, sir. So recommendation to approve a proposal for an A6 liquor license application for 7-Eleven store 30153 located at 51 South Randall. This is the fueling station convenience store at the intersection of Randall and West Main Street. This, too, is a transfer of ownership. So the current franchisee is transferring this business to actually one of his workers who purchased the business, and I believe an April sale is pending. The petitioner also has a fueling station, Mini Mart, in Wisconsin Rapids, Wisconsin. Once again, the material in your packet is up to date and current. The petitioner is here to answer any questions you might have, as well as myself. And the police department also recommends this license as well.
So nothing's changing, just new ownership.
New franchisee, correct?
Move for approval.
Moved by Wirball, seconded by Petrilla. Roll call, please.
Fessner?
Yes.
Kulkaitis?
Yes.
Folk?
Yes.
Bungard?
Yes.
Munns?
Yes.
Lencioni?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Petrilla?
Yes.
Wirball?
Yes.
That item carries as well. Thank you very much, Chief. Next on the list, item 7A, we have a presentation by Deputy Chief Cavallo.
Good evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the council. I am here tonight to present the license agreement for the use of Lincoln Park for the 4th of July fireworks show. I'd first like to take a minute and thank you all for making the decision of having the fireworks moved to the current locations. I appreciate the pressure you all probably faced during that time to make a big change like we did. I know that change is hard, and we have a saying in the fire service, there's two things that firemen hate. It's change and the way things are. So, I appreciate it. So I'm here again tonight to present the license agreement that is for the use of Lincoln Park. And this license agreement was reviewed by the city attorney. Now you may notice that some of the details are not finalized, such as Exhibit C, and that's because the Park District needs to have this license agreement before they can sign a contract for the fireworks show. On behalf of the fire department, are there any questions at this time?
Any questions?
Move for approval.
Moved by Bongard, seconded by Lencioni. Roll call, please.
Fessner?
Yes.
Kulkaitis?
Yes.
Folk?
Yes.
Bungard?
Yes.
Munns?
Yes.
Lencioni?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Petrilla?
Yes.
Wirball?
Yes.
That item carries. Thank you very
sir.
much, Deputy Chief.
Thank you.
Moving right along, item 8A, Director Gunnarsson is going to make a presentation.
Like a flower. Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Chairman Weber. The recommendation I have for the committee tonight is to approve a recommendation for purchase of a Microsoft Office 365 agreement with Dell Marketing. You may recall last year at this time, you approved a similar agreement. We didn't move forward with it due to staff resource limitations. But I'm happy to say we have a new network and infrastructure manager, Robert Traska, who you'll meet tonight. So now we have the staff to be able to move forward with this project. So a little bit about Office 365, what's going to be on our enterprise agreement. I mean, the key thing is it's cloud-based email hosting and email security. So then we will not have to host email on our data center servers anymore. We'll move everything to the cloud, to Microsoft Cloud. We're also using SharePoint, that's Microsoft's intranet software, and we'll be using it as a basis to replace our iNet software right now. So we'll have a new and improved iNet by the end of the year using SharePoint as the basis for that. Also includes Teams, which is a collaboration software which allows for video conferencing, messaging, collaboration for staff to work together on projects. OneDrive data storage to allow us to move a lot of our data storage that we have on premise right now to the cloud, to Microsoft Cloud, as well as Office productivity software like we all are aware of, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Access. We'll have all the latest versions from Microsoft. And this agreement will also include upgrades to our desktop operating systems. And why are we moving forward with this? I think one of the key things that supports our strategic plan goal to implement technology to improve our internal and external processes and increase efficiencies. You know, things like Teams is an excellent productivity software. SharePoint for iNet is going to be a great improvement for us for productivity. From a staff management side in IT, alleviating the work of maintaining email servers is going to be a real productivity gain. Also allows us to maintain current versions of our software. So will avoid having to upgrade to the next version of our email software, which will be end of life next year. So by moving to the agreement, we'll obviate the need to move to another version of software, the cost that goes along with that, as well as implementation. And another reason why we want to move to Office 365, the enterprise agreement, really increases security. Both the email, SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams are all hosted in Microsoft's government cloud at their data centers, which are all built to federal government security standards, so will greatly increase our security, as well as the software is consistently and constantly updated and secure, so we always have the latest, most secure versions of the software. It's a 3-year agreement for $122,000 per year for a total of $366,000. We're purchasing it through Dell Marketing, which is actually a subsidiary of Dell Computers. They won the contract with the state of Illinois. It's a master's purchase agreement, so we're guaranteed the lowest pricing as well as discounted volume pricing for this enterprise agreement. And lastly, we're funding the enterprise agreement in year 1 through our technology replacement fund. And in years 2 and 3, it's going to be an operating budget expense. So that's all I have. Any questions?
Go ahead, Ron.
Larry, how many users are on this?
Be about 300.
Go ahead, Jamie.
I'm just curious, how this interfaces with or impacts the changes to the website. Is there any interrelation?
No interrelation with our website at all. Yeah, that'll be hosted by a different provider.
Any questions? I have a question. Any other questions up here? Larry, so the 366, so it's going to get spread out over 3 years. We're not going to count on your budget all at once.
Correct.
Would this have any impact or help lessen our risk as far as like cyber insurance? Can this help out?
Yeah, it really should. When our application for cybersecurity insurance, they'll ask us a number of questions about our environment. Things like moving to a cloud-based system like Office 365 should help in that regard.
Okay, thank you. Looking for a motion and
Move for approval.
Moved by Wirball, seconded by Gem. Roll call, please.
Fessner?
Yes.
Kulkaitis?
Yes.
Foltz?
Yes.
Bungard?
Yes.
Munns? Yes. Lencioni?
Yes.
Gem?
Yes.
Petrilla?
Yes.
Wirball?
Yes.
All right, that item carries. Thank you very much, Larry. Next up, we have item 8B. Robert's going to make a presentation. How you doing?
Yes. Good afternoon. I'm here to present the resolution authorizing agreement with Liftoff for Office 365 guided deployment services for $30,000. Liftoff is a Microsoft partner and focuses on Office 365 migrations. They have over 12 years of experience and a proven track record of migrating not only state, county, but also municipalities. The agreement with Liftoff will ensure a smooth transition to Office 365 with minimal downtime, and they will ensure that the configuration that we're implementing follows industry best practices. So if there's any additional questions, I'm available.
Question, go ahead, Phil.
How long would this process take?
So this is a 2 to 3 month process, and there will be multiple sessions that we have with them going through configuration. So.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved by Bongard, seconded by Petrilla. Roll call, please.
Fessner?
Yes.
Kulkaitis?
Yes.
Foltz?
Yes.
Bungard?
Yes.
Munns?
Yes.
Lencioni?
Yes.
Gem?
Yes.
Petrilla?
Yes.
Wirball?
Yes.
That item is approved. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have public comment. Anybody here for public comment? Seeing none. Next, additional items from mayor, council, staff. Ms. Munns, you have anything to say? No? Okay. Executive session, we do not need one. I'm looking for a motion and a second to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Gem, seconded by Bongard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Okay, the ayes have it. We are adjourned. Thank you.